So in this video, we're going to go through the top mistakes to avoid after you've had hip impingement surgery or hip arthroscopy for FAI syndrome. So let's get into it now. Now, many people who have hip pain as a result of FAI syndrome, or what's commonly referred to as hip impingement, really struggle for quite a long time, and they can go through periods of like months and years of having real specific and progressive hip pain that can be really, problematic and difficult to manage just with physio or conservatively. And, sometimes it gets to a point where those individuals get referred on or suggested to have surgery. Now, the surgery can be so successful, so efficacious for these people to enable them to develop and thrive and have no hip pain. But there are some absolute no-nos that you've got to just be cautious of and just be mindful that doesn't allow you to necessarily impact your recovery. So obviously there's do's and don'ts, but when it comes to hip arthroscopy and hip impingement surgery, there are some really key things I'm going to go through in this video that will enable someone to really make the most of the surgical procedure. So I'm going to go through these points now. And in particular, I'm going to give you probably like 4 or 5 top things that I want you to consider after surgery so that you don't irritate it, so you don't flare your symptoms up, really so you can get the most from it. So the first one I'm going to go through is the physio. Now the physio that you're going to have after hip arthroscopy has to be at a decent level. Now what I mean by that is you need to be seeing someone who really deals with this stuff a lot. You want to be seeing a physio who understands what FAI syndrome is, that understands what the surgical procedure is and really sees this stuff a lot. Because this physio, this whole procedure, right, is almost like 50-50. On one hand, you have to have a surgeon who is good, who does it a lot, who is experienced, that's going to enable you to optimize those outcomes. Now on the other hand, afterwards you've got surgery, after surgery you've got physio, and then that has to align with that level of input, because you can't have a surgeon who hardly does it, who, don't get me wrong, still excellent, but might not be as good as some other surgeons, versus you seeing a physio who maybe doesn't see it as much. These things come hand in hand. It's almost like 50-50. So your physio post-op has to be good. It has to be structured. Now, rehab post-hip arthroscopy cannot be winged. There are certain phases, certain structures that you have to navigate through in order to get the recovery optimized. Go through different levels of phases, making sure that the first phase is a little bit calmer, a little bit easier, just working through range, working on the ability to kind of get someone functionally able. And then there are different programs and structures that you contribute to each one to enable you to get to a point where you'll do the nitty-gritty, sexy type exercises like the squats and the deadlifts and the lunges, but you need to be able to get to that stage. Now, often some of the mistakes that I see when it comes to physio, well, almost are twofold. On one hand, some patients don't even get to see a physio or don't get enough physio. And on the other hand, it's the type of physio that they're doing. Now, if you don't respect the surgical procedure and you jump to doing, like the traditional strengthening type exercises too soon, there is a risk that you can irritate the hip. There's a risk that the symptoms can get exacerbated. And then what happens at that point is you have a patient that becomes a bit despondent, that gets a little bit low in mood, because then they've got a bit of synovitis, they've got a bit of tendinopathy, the joint hurts. So there is a problematic outcome by not doing the right physio at the right time. So disregarding the fact that I said some people don't even get physio, the ones that have to get the right type of physio. So you don't want your first block of exercises to be deadlifts and squats and lunges, because really in those first 2 phases, it's all about maintaining the range that you've got, not allowing the hip to stiffen up, functionally being better, but also in the same breath, making sure that you're not doing anything too extreme or robust that's going to irritate it. Because fundamentally, once you've had your hip arthroscopy procedure done, there is going to be a degree of impact on the deep stability and what's referred to as the proprioception of the joint. That's just part and parcel of the surgery that you've had done. So in order to enable you to get the most out of the strengthening exercises and to really mitigate it flaring up, you have to make sure that your exercises are really pitched at the right level. And in order to do that, you have to work on the stability, the control of the hip, and really make sure that you're allowing the hip to then tolerate the strength exercises that you're going to do at a later date. Those exercises are fine, but like I said, it's just pitching it at the right time. That kind of brings me to another point now in regards to some of the things to just be cautious of after an arthroscopy. Now, range of movement is key with this. Range of movement is obviously lost when someone's got FAI syndrome, notably into deep flexion and into like internal rotation when your hip is flexed. So post-operatively, it's important to be cautious, but also be mindful that you don't want the hip to stiffen up, because now we've got access to more range. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to go to jump to access it immediately, because often if patients are doing a lot of deep stretching, a lot of hip mobility stuff too early on, it can provoke the hip, it can irritate it, inflame it, and then you get secondary type problems that can start to develop. So the stretches and the mobility have to be pitched at the right time. The initial phase, especially if you've got someone who's had a labral repair, you need to let it heal, you need to let it do what it needs to do, and you don't want to stress it and strain it to the point of where it can fail by doing extreme stretches and pulling and yanking the leg around. So you've got to make sure that you just add those in at the right time. And often what I do with my patients in those phases where we've spent a lot of time in the early stages doing just gradual range of movement within what range they have and building their function and ability, we'll add in stretches as part of their exercises. We'll add stretches in as part of what their program is doing. So if they're doing an exercise, we might add in a type of stretch that just puts on a bit more of a, I guess, traditional stretch range of movement, just to give them that little bit of ability to just move it in a different range of movement, rather than doing hip flexor stretches, deep glute stretches, and pigeon, kind of piriformis type stuff. It'll be too aggressive, it'll be too much, and it'll be too soon. So you have to make sure all of this is just about the right thing at the right time. It's the same theme over and over and over again. Now, the other thing to consider about just making sure that you optimize outcomes afterwards is ensuring that you don't irritate the hip too much. And sometimes that can be done by flaring up what's referred to and what we know as one of the hip flexors, the iliopsoas tendon. Now, the iliopsoas tendon can sometimes get flared up by doing some of the most simple things post-operatively that can really put you at a disadvantage. And some of those things are not, really part of the stretches that I said, the hip flexor type stretches and lunge type stretches, that could irritate it. But long lever hip flexion. And the long lever hip flexion, for example, if I explain what that is, imagine you're laying on your back and you just start lifting your leg up straight, up and down, up and down. That's essentially long lever hip flexion, because your long leg is extended, it's a long lever, and you're flexing the hip. Often that tendon and muscle can't tolerate that amount of load too soon post-operatively. So if you add that in too quickly, what can happen is you can develop what's called an iliopsoas tendinopathy, and that iliopsoas tendinopathy really can almost be as painful as the hip was pre-operatively. Unfortunately, if you get into kind of a bit of a vicious cycle of doing too much and flaring that up, then you've got a painful hip. What's going to happen with that? Well, then the patient starts to feel despondent. Have I made the right decision? Now the hip hurts again. Well, some of these things might be avoidable. You can mitigate that, but just making sure that any loading exercise that's going to focus on the iliopsoas, that's going to focus on the hip flexors, is introduced at the right level of difficulty, with short lever work, maybe some isometric, maybe some kind of within range loading exercises, and then gradually increasing the tolerance from a shorter to a long lever through range. And by doing that, you're building up the tolerance for it to do what it needs to do. And also, by proxy, mitigating the risk of developing this tendinopathic response, which I said like before, can be quite painful, because anyone that's had a labral tear will know flexion can be painful. Well, if you've got an iliopsoas hip flexor related problem as well, flexing that hip is also going to be painful. So if you've got both of those things, it can be a slippery slope. So you just want to make sure that you don't start to do too much of that at the right time. So too much of that at the kind of early stage. You just want to introduce it really at the right time to make sure that you can get the most out of those exercises. Brings me on to another thing when we're talking about exercises, and that's the clamshell. Now, it's no secret that I'm not the biggest lover of a clamshell exercise. No exercise is a bad exercise. It's just about understanding the value of what these exercises bring, and really if it's going to enable much. And with a clamshells are traditionally given to someone to work their glute med, so the kind of the gluteal muscles on the side of the hip, right? But that's not what its functionality does. When you're in a side-lying hip flex position doing external rotation, well, actually, that doesn't really do your glute med at all, because that actually works as an internal rotator in a deep flexed hip. So that's by the by. It doesn't do as much from a muscular load profile, but that's not even my main gripe with it in this case, because when you're in that side lying hip flex position, bringing the hip into external rotation repeatedly, but at the same time that iliopsoas is translating over the front of the hip, often where the hip has been irritable, often where the hip is a bit flared up post-operatively. And actually that can start to flare things up. It can start to flare up the bursa. It can start to flare up the kind of the front of the hip capsule. And equally that iliopsoas tendon can start to become a bit problematic. So you've got an exercise that may not necessarily offer as much in regards to like value of getting a muscular response and strength benefit, but also there's a risk of irritating the hip. So you just got to find that balance with these things, because I think that's my concern, is they get given because they're easy to give. And look, if someone has no pain and they're not post-operative, then everything is fair game. That's fine. But we're talking specific hip rehab for someone that's had an arthroscopy. So you just have to make sure, if you are giving someone exercises like a clamshell, that you're just understanding that you're rehabbing them at the right time and giving the exercises for the right purpose. There's so much that you can do. I think from a rehab perspective, if that is you, you're booking in to have the surgery, if you have had the surgery, I also want to hear from you guys, in particular if you've had any struggles, because often people who have gone through this have got their own story, have got their own kind of concerns and issues that they've had. So comment below. I really want to make sure that we get a community here to learn from one another. And if there's any kind of things that I've missed and you're thinking, actually, is this okay or is not okay, please ask below. There's more of these videos to come, and have a look on the channel. Thanks.